And away we go. So let's see what me and the lads in the group chat have sent for us to look at. Whatever was in our view that social media is wanting to show us. Get a reaction out of us. Which is working to some extent. Now, since the last time I've recorded a podcast episode, there isn't much that's been sent by either me or any of the lads that I usually have on these episodes. I did said something that was trending on Twitter X. President Trump named Erika Kirk, widow of conservative activist Charlie Kirk, to the US Air Force Academy's Board of Visitors. She replaces her husband, assassinated by a sniper in September 2025 at a Turning Point USA event in Utah, where suspect Tyler James Robinson faces aggravated murder charges and the death penalty. Though lacking military experience, supporters like Board Chair Rep. August Pfluger praise her as the right fit to inspire future service members, while critics question her qualifications and raise unverified claims. And then on Twitter X, there are a series of posts discovering the aforementioned headline, Erika Kirk being appointed to the Air Force Academy's Board of Visitors. So I've shared that to the group chat, see what the lads think of it, because, well, I know Eric has shared in the last few weeks, the last few months, about whatever has been going on with Erika Kirk since her husband Charlie was assassinated. Looking back at her time in Romania, key details in the background of Charlie Kirk's office back when he was alive, how certain frames or pictures have been removed and been replaced with something else, and of course, not to mention Candace Owens talking extensively, non-stop, about what Erika Kirk has been doing behind the scenes, what she has been doing even before she even met Charlie, and other connections that people would question. I would not call this nepotism, even if there are people that would say there is signs of nepotism at some point. And there's also other conspiracy theories about another woman named Erika Kirk in the many decades ago. I don't know how else to describe it. It's just a lot of stuff being talked about with Erika Kirk since Charlie was unalived. And a lot of people are not taking so kindly to those messages. I'll leave it at that. That's all I know from my perspective as of now. As of this recording 5 hours ago, there was something else sent in the group chat by someone. However, it was quickly deleted. I'm not gonna point fingers at Discord trying to manipulate end-to-end encryption. No. I'm not gonna pounce on Discord for this. I'm just wondering, how come does it say that 5 hours ago something was sent recently, even though the most recent thing that was ever sent in our group chat was me when I posted that Twitter X headline yesterday at 8 p.m. as of me recording this episode. I direct messaged the two lads separately, and I showed them the screenshots circling our group chat showing something that was sent more recently than what I have sent recently. And I asked the lads the following: did you send something into the group chat? Because it's not showing up for me. I didn't get a response from Risk. I got a response from Eric. He said, no, I didn't send anything. I replied, might be Risk then. A few minutes after I said what I said to Eric, for a brief moment, every time I opened the Discord app, after not being on it for hours, I saw a brief moment, brief few seconds. There was something that was posted after me sharing the Twitter X trending headline, and then immediately disappeared. And it was the yellow Discord logo background, which I know that is what Risk has as his profile. He didn't choose it, it's just he didn't set up a profile himself. Although that's a different story. At one time he did put up a profile picture back when Faithy, or now known as Frankie, was part of this group called Team Sketch. So yeah, that's a story for another time. So yeah, I'm just usually I'm skeptical about whereabouts, technological bip-bops, bippity-boops. That there is more to that. There's more to what I see with my own eyes. Even if it's blatantly obvious and even remotely true, there is more to what I see. And that is something that not many people talk about. Just out of boredom, I actually went to DeepSeek and basically, I was bored and I was curious about what this is going on. And before anyone asks, I do not rely on any AI chatbots for anything other than suggestions for podcast episode titles. That is it. That's all I ask AI chatbots like ChatGPT, DeepSeek, Claude, etc. I went to DeepSeek and I gave a prompt to DeepSeek saying, you are a senior investigator with decades of experience. Can you explain what seems to be the problem in this screenshot? And the screenshot I provided is a screenshot of me pulling up a discussion within our group chat, and then me circling the tab showing us our group chat, and then something that was sent a lot more recently than what I just sent, which is also the same screenshot I sent to the lads directly via direct message to them separately. I applied think mode. I'm not sure what you call it, but the think button encourages DeepSeek to actually think critically as much as it can. And then here's what its thought process read out as it was trying to comprehend the prompt and the screenshot I provided. We are given a screenshot of a messaging interface, possibly Discord or similar. It shows various group chats and messages. The user asks, "You are a senior investigator with decades of experience. Can you explain what seems to be the problem in this screenshot?" So we need to analyze the screenshot for any issues, inconsistencies, or potential problems. Let's examine the content. The screenshot is titled Messages and shows a list of group chats on the left, and on the right a specific group chat, the group chat. Arrow pointing to online, with a message from John Malone, that's me, likely a username at yesterday at 20:28 hours, with a link, and then the link is just the trending headline from Twitter X that reads, Trump appoints Erika Kirk to Air Force Academy board after husband, exclamation mark, dot, dot, dot. I'm not sure why that was cut off. President Trump named Erika Kirk, 37, widow of slain Turning Point USA founder Charlie Kirk, to the U.S. Air Force Academy's Board of Visitors. The board advises on academy matters like morale, discipline, and facilities. Charlie had received his appointment in March 2025 and attended one meeting before his September assassination, while White hated ... And that was it. That's what the thinking process actually read out on DeepSeek. It also continues reading, there is also a line, quote unquote, message group chat at the bottom. Now, we need to identify a problem. Possibly it's a fake news or a misleading article, question mark. Let's read carefully. Trump appoints Erika Kirk to Air Force Academy board after husband, exclamation mark, ... The text says, President Trump named Erika Kirk, 37, widow of slain Turning Point USA founder Charlie Kirk, to the U.S. Air Force Academy's Board of Visitors. Wait, Charlie Kirk is a real person. founder of Turning Point USA. But he is alive. He is not dead. So the article claims he was assassinated in September 2025. This is false. Charlie Kirk is alive and well. So this is likely a fabricated or satirical news article. The problem might be that the news is fake, and the screenshot is showing a conversation where someone is sharing a fake news link. But the question is, what seems to be the problem in this screenshot? Possibly the problem is that the news is false, or maybe there is some other inconsistency. Let's look at the other group chats listed. For instance, there is a message from YGPDB.xyz saying you have been warned, which might be a bot warning. Also, there is Eric, the Christ struggler, sparkle emoji, left the group, etc. But the focus is likely on the linked article. Another angle, the username Jarmelone might be suspicious, but probably not. The article snippet says Charlie had received his appointment in March 2025 and had attended one meeting before his September assassination. That would be a future date? The screenshot is presumably taken in 2026. Actually, if the assassination is in September 2025, and it's now maybe 2026, but Charlie Kirk is still alive, so it's false. Also note, while white H is cut off, so the problem is that this is misinformation. As a senior investigator, we might point out that the news is fabricated, and the user might be spreading fake news. But let's see if there's any other issue. The group chat name, the group chat, arrow pointing to online, maybe indicates it's a specific channel. The message is from Jarmelone, which might be a user. The link is to a trending page on X, Twitter. The snippet seems to be from an article. Possibly the article is from a satirical site, but it's presented as real. Another possibility, the screenshot might be from a Discord server, and there might be a problem with moderation or something. But the question is open-ended. Given the instruction, you are a senior investigator with decades of experience. Can you explain what seems to be the problem in this screenshot? We need to provide a concise explanation of the issue. Thus, I'll answer the problem is that the news article being shared is false. Charlie Kirk is not dead, and the claim of his assassination is fabricated. This could be an example of misinformation. I'll structure the answer accordingly. That is DeepSeek's entire thought process when I pressed the think button. The response that DeepSeek provided to me, assuming I didn't look into the thought process that DeepSeek was going through, the response I was given directly, the primary issue in this screenshot is the dissemination of false information. The linked article claims that Charlie Kirk, founder of Turning Point USA, was assassinated in September 2025, and that his widow was appointed to a board by President Trump. In reality, Charlie Kirk is alive and well, making this a fabricated story. This type of misinformation can spread rapidly, leading to confusion and distrust. As an investigator, it's important to verify such claims before accepting or sharing them. And that is it. And for anyone wondering, AI is so great. It could do anything. Not everything, I would say. And people say that AI is becoming so advanced as the days and the weeks go by. AI is going to take out jobs. I'm going to be out of the job. I'm going to be homeless. Even if there is any chance of AI taking whatever jobs that is yet to be implemented by artificial intelligence of any level, the response I just gave you is a brilliant textbook case of why artificial intelligence is not as bright nor sharp as people think it is. And in regards to the trending Twitter X article that I shared to the lads in the group chat, I actually had to check this myself thoroughly. I'm not going to be one of those people that just reads the headlines and say, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe this actually happened." No, I actually went on Twitter X, looked at all the posts, and no, I feel like I could have done a lot more than just look on Twitter X for other posts, people saying that Erika Kirk was appointed to the Air Academy board. I could also go on Instagram and on maybe look at the social media accounts of the White House. And although I haven't checked the White House account, I would assume they would have already announced that themselves already. If this story, which I just read and have shared to the lads in the group chat, if it was not real, I would have looked at the comments on one of the posts to see how people are reacting to the story. If it was real, then people would say, "Congratulations to this person," or people would say, other people, in contrast, would say, "This person is not good for that position. Why would they allow it?" If that story was not real, it was a piss take, rage baiting, trolling, etc., then I would see comments trying to be sarcastic, as the post suggests, and maybe have a little joke, maybe plant a couple jokes to show how unserious the story in question is and how unlikely it would ever happen. So yeah, that's just my process on looking up on whatever you see online. Just because a lot of people are talking about something does not mean it is exactly true. Even if there is, even if there are things that are remotely true, is there anything else? Is there any other key details that not many people are mentioning or pointing out? That is very important. It's very important. And I'm not gonna. I don't want to mention the elephant in the room, Charlie Kirk. That was a big story back in September 2025. Everyone for weeks was talking about Charlie Kirk assassinated, and the shooter in question is going to be punished so hard. And whilst people will be on board with the death penalty, I'm not. And I'm not saying people shouldn't be punished. I believe there are punishments that are far worse than death. And if there are other punishments worse than death, which there are, I would double down on those, on whatever individual should be punished severely immediately. If you're going to break laws, commit crimes, then you shall be punished or be given a consequence that reflects your actions. Even if it's very severe, if it reflects the actions of the person, so be it. At least they'll be made an example to show people if you were to do whatever severe, tragic actions these people have done, that's what happened. That's the kind of punishment you will get. It is not pretty. That is that. I also a very while ago I've sent a YouTube video quite a while back. The title reads, "How Just One Man Destroyed British Railways in 1963." A completely unrelated YouTube video I've watched a while back looked at the history of British railway expansion and the axis of British Rail. And I noticed somewhere around the mid-20th century, there was massive reductions on railways across Britain, all the way up until the 70s, 80s, and even 90s. The YouTube video in question I shared to the lads a long while ago, it looks into the history of, now there were two men, the surnames Beech and Marple, respectively. Those are the two surnames, those are the sort of men that I'm made widely aware of within that YouTube video. In that YouTube video, looking at British railways around the 1960s, the reduction of British rail, the terrible impact that cutting British rail funding and access has had to local communities in the UK. And this was all at the same time where the state-run British railways started coming into fruition, transitioning away from the privately owned railway companies into now to the then state-owned British railways. I'm not going to make the case that state-run rail is a bad idea. I'm not going to say that. Only having state-run rail isn't going to be enough. Even when there are people arguing that private railway companies as of today, as it stands now, there isn't much investment. The money that's being made from these railway companies being paid mostly to the shareholders and not being reinvested to the infrastructure and other additional expenses. I believe there should be a balance of both the private and the public aspects of railway, or even public transit in general. I don't think there's much else for me to discuss, although I have so much to say on the topic in question about British Railway. Out of all the promises that this current Labour government said they will plan out on doing, the renationalisation of British Railways is certainly one of the promises that Labour is actually delivering on. That does not mean that everyone that voted for Labour is going to be all fine and dandy and they'll be confident that in the next general election they'll be voting for Labour again. No, that's not going to be the case. People in the UK are not naive, and they're not gullible to promises of any previous government. Even the Tories during their 14 years of being in government. People already know too much about what they were being promised, only for those promises to either be committed halfway or fall short of being committed, or even not being committed at all. In some cases, the opposite of what they promised actually happens instead. So back to British Railway in 1963, or in at least the 60s of British Railway. Yeah, I'm pissed. I was pissed hearing about the scale back of British Railway. Not the state-run company, the railway infrastructure. Even when people in the UK prefer to get place to place by car, there should be other options besides using your car to get to places. What about planes and existing railway infrastructure to get from community to community, even when it's hundreds of miles away from wherever you live? Whatever happened in the 1960s is not just pulling back the railway access to other UK communities, it is also preventing people within the UK from getting farther and farther to places that they want to go. And it also even cuts access for farmers in the most rural communities to access urbanized settlements for to get whatever daily needs they have to commit to, or whatever necessities they need to purchase. Regardless of whichever government was responsible for cutting back the railway infrastructure, in my opinion, cutting back any infrastructure of public transit is a terrible idea. And it does not matter if it's state-run or private companies are the ones that are investing into cutting back any of these things is a terrible idea. And that is all of the stuff that me and the lads, well, mostly me, have shared in the group chat. That there wasn't much that was shared in that group chat since the last time I recorded a podcast episode. So, without a further ado, let's get into the rest of the news. King penguins are the rare species benefiting from a warming world, but that could change. On Wednesday, a study of 19,000 king penguins in a sub-Antarctic island chain found breeding now begins 19 days earlier than in 2000. The paper reported in Science Advances. Researchers say king penguins can switch prey beyond lanternfish and breed from late October to March, providing them dietary and seasonal flexibility to cope with warming. Field data show reproductive gains linked to earlier mating by 40%, with some birds staying near colonies and adjusting foraging to cope. Study leads Gail Bardon and Celine Bush said. Outside experts noted future shifts in currents, precipitation, or temperatures could undo current gains, and study authors warn the advantage may be temporary amid rapid environmental change. The study examines a small slice of animals' lives, while king penguins live 20 or more years, and other penguin species with limited diets face greater risk from warming-driven food web changes. No, climate change has always been around us for many years. In terms of me knowing about effects of climate change, it has made a comeback, in my perspective. I know the lads will have a route with this one. Although, in the past I have said so much about the fear-mongering of climate change, the effects of climate change not being as bad as what people make it out to be, I don't think I have anything else to add to the story. I'm aware that there is a change in our climate. It comes down to what could we do to stop it? And I know immediately Risk would immediately jump into what I'm saying to me replying, climate change is a hoax. This is all a plot to get companies to make lots of money. Okay, maybe not that part about the money from companies. I know Risk will certainly say that climate change is a hoax and a scam, and everyone is being lied to, he says. So yeah, that's all that's all I have to say. In regards to the king penguins, I hope they're all right and they can continue living their lives for as long as they shall live, and no other harm comes to them. I will say that. Albania's constitutional court ruled on Wednesday that the government's one-year TikTok ban was unconstitutional, violating freedoms of expression and the press. The court concluded the government had not convincingly proven the ban was necessary. Authorities imposed the ban last year following a teenager's fatal stabbing, linked to a social media dispute. The government later cited new safety mechanisms implemented by TikTok before the ban expired on February 2026. In practice, the restriction proved difficult to enforce as users bypassed it via VPNs. Esmeralda Flori, a 21-year-old communications student, called the ban absurd, saying she was grateful to the government for enabling 88% of Albanians to learn what a VPN is. Prime Minister Edi Rama criticized the ruling on Twitter X, writing the court thinks that 90% of Albanian parents and teachers were wrong about the ban. He added the government reopen TikTok after the company took additional measures. The Albanian Journalists Association representative Isa Miziraj praised the ruling as an important development for the protection of democratic standards. Global scrutiny persists, with the European Union warning ByteDance-owned TikTok's addictive features could harm users, mirroring restrictions in Australia. Well, isn't most governments wouldn't most countries' governments just going to implement the social media ban for under 16s anyway? Even if social media platforms actually did something and actually gave a damn, governments around the world are going to implement these new policies and laws anyway. So back to the story about Albania's highest court ruling the TikTok ban is unconstitutional. You can't argue with freedom of speech and the press. There's no arguing with that. You don't have to agree with these people. You just can't argue with it. Yeah, I think that's it. I thought I would say more. I think that's all I have to say on that. Revolut gets full UK banking license after years-long wait. On March 11th, 2026, regulators lifted restrictions on Revolut's UK banking license, allowing Revolut Bank UK Limited to launch as a fully authorized bank with current accounts for retail and business customers. Since 2024, Revolut operated under a restricted banking license after a 3-year wait and a mobilization phase, delaying full UK banking authorization despite holding EU approval. Current accounts will start rolling out to select new customers within days, with gradual expansion over the coming weeks and lending and balance sheet products enabled by the full license. The license positions Revolut to offer balance sheet products that pressure incumbents, tied to a $4 billion commitment to the UK and plans to create 1,000 jobs. Recently, Revolut launched banking operations in Mexico and aims for India and South Africa. While valued at $75 billion and targeting 100 million customers amid criticism over anti-money laundering rules. So, UK Revolut bank account holders. Anything happens to Revolut, UK bank customers can be compensated. Not sure what the exact I'm not sure what the exact figure would be. I know for sure having a full banking license within the UK allows customers within that bank to be compensated if the bank in question does go bust. And the other stuff that comes with the full UK banking license. Of course, Revolut's going to have its own issues, like it has for many years. At least for this moment in time, it's a win for Revolut. They waited for years to have this moment, and now they have it. What could go wrong from there? Katy Perry loses 17-year trademark battle to Australian designer Katy Perry. Oh boy, that's going to be quite the twister for me. On Wednesday, the Australian High Court ruled in favour of Sydney designer Katy Taylor, restoring her right to sell clothing under her Katy Perry trademark against pop star Katy Perry. Taylor registered her business name in 2007 and applied for the trademark months later. The American singer, Catherine Elizabeth Hudson, rose to global fame shortly after, prompting cease and desist letters from her management in 2009. High Court Justices Jane Jaggett, Simon Stewart, and Jacqueline Gleeson found no likelihood of consumer confusion, noting the singer had no established clothing reputation in Australia by 2008 and determining the mark was lawful. Following the ruling, Katy Perry was ordered to pay Taylor's legal costs, with the exact amount to be determined by the federal court. Reversing a 2024 decision, that had cancelled the designer's trademark. Taylor, who described the case as a David and Goliath battle, said the victory protects small businesses from larger brands and clarifies how courts assess reputation in future name-based trademark disputes. A win for the Australian Katy Perry after years' battle against the American Katy Perry. So good for you, Australian Katy Perry. You can continue to use the name for whatever purpose within the clothing space. I remember having this discussion with Shadowminer a couple months back. Actually, it's been a year or two ago. It is possible for two companies in different sectors to have the same name. What Shadowminer told me is that so long as you registered the trademark of that name within that specific sector, that the business getting that trademark operates under, if that makes sense to anyone, then it is lawful for that name to be trademarked within that specific industry sector. So, say the name Clarabelle was trademarked under the technology industry in Singapore. Now, another company named Clarabelle operating under the florist industry could also have the same name, only have the name Clarabelle be trademarked under the floral or florist industry. Now, of course, other countries have different set of rules regarding trademarking and specific details when it comes to trademarking, and also how often you should renew your trademarks and rights to names. So yeah, that's briefly what Shadowminer and I had discussed a while back. And yeah, I've learned so much from Shadowminer. Malawi court dismisses 15-year lawsuit against Madonna charity. Anjimire Oponyo sued Madonna's charity Raising Malawi for wrongful termination after her 2011 dismissal. The judge ruled Oponyo had taken too long to file the lawsuit and dismissed the case as frivolous. The ruling closes a chapter that strained Madonna's relationship with Malawi, where she remains a donor. And the judge for this case, again, makes a good point, which should go without saying. It's an unwritten logic for every case. If you're going to file a lawsuit for something, do it as soon as possible. Don't take time. Don't wait years before actually filing the lawsuit. Not that it'll be hard for the plaintiff to gather the evidence or make the case of whatever happened in this lawsuit. It also comes down to particular convenient timings of when the lawsuit's been filed, why the lawsuit has been filed, and the outcomes that the plaintiff hopes to get from the lawsuit. And I would say the same thing. Why now are you filing this lawsuit? Why not the month that this lawsuit happened? Whatever Madonna's been sued for, why didn't Aponyo file the lawsuit as soon as possible? Why not the month the fallout, the messy ordeal happened between Aponyo and Madonna? Either way, the damage is done. Well, I mean, yeah, the damage is done already. At least on Madonna's side, from Madonna's point of view. And given the last bullet points, Madonna's relationship with Malawi, the ruling closed a chapter that strained Madonna's relationship with Malawi. Wow, must have been a serious lawsuit. And quite a hectic one too. And yet, Madonna still remains a donor. For something. Not sure what exactly. It says that she's a donor. For something. Within Malawi. It's not easy in the world of law. There's technicalities, specific language, clauses, small prints. There's always the small details that goes into everything. Our way of life, the rules that we follow in business, logistics, social context. People think they're guilty. I'm not. Oh, wait, they think I'm guilty. I'm not guilty, or some third factor. It's not as simple as good versus evil. It's about what happened. Is this person or groups of people in the wrong, and what the punishment should be if they've been proven to be in the wrong. So yeah, that's all there is for me to say. Hopefully Madonna stays cool, keeps her head held high, and continues a relationship with the country of Malawi despite the ugly that just happened for many years. And yeah, it's quite a pickle. We got there in the end. It's done and dusted. And that is it for the episode.